And to that piece of shit lieutenant that's always on his podcast bashing us, fuck him.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to New York's finest Retired and Unfiltered podcast. We got a good episode for you tonight, all right? So everybody put your seatbelts on. We're going to have Franklin Valdez on. I'm sure you guys know him. He's a candidate for New York City PBA transit trustee. He was recently disqualified, and we're going to go into that, and we're going to talk about it because we don't think what happened was right. As always, I'm joined by the most complained about cop in New York City, a.k.a. the boogeyman, Eric Estem. Eric, how you doing, my brother?
Outstanding, bro. This never gets old. Franklin, pleasure to have you, brother. You know it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's go right into it. Franklin, tell us a little bit about yourself. But tell us where you grew up and why you became a cop.
Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for having me. Franklin Valdez, currently assigned to Transit District 20. I came on the job in July of 2005. So come July, I'm making 18 years on. And born and raised in Queens. Now I'm living out here in Nassau. But I'm a Queens kid. I'm always going to be a Queens kid. And then I've been assigned to transit my whole career. I wanted to be a cop since I was like 3 years old. It's everything I always wanted to do. And I'm proud to be a cop. You know, it's a proud profession. Whatever's going on in the media, I don't care about that. I'm always going to be proud to be a cop. Cop first. And being assigned to transit was, it was amazing. I've had a great career. I've been in transit the whole time. The same command, same cops. I've seen cops come and go. I've become bosses and come back, and I'm like, wow, But it's been great. It's been a great career, and I became a delegate back in 2018, and I've been a delegate since. And I decided it was time to run.
What made you in particular? Like, why'd you decide? So you're about 4.5 years, a little over, maybe 5 years. You've been a delegate. What made you decide to do that? Like, why'd you say, all right, I'm going to throw my name in the hat?
Honestly, I think it started with the vaccine mandate. That was hard for me. And it was hard for a lot of people. When the vaccines started and they started enforcing it, it just didn't sit right with me. You know what I mean? And it was hard on my family because my wife is a nurse. She's not a nurse, sorry. She's an ultrasound technician, but she works in the hospital. So she's also a first responder, and she was required to get it. And I feel like God spoke through inside me and told me, I can't get it. And it's something I had to stay away from. And I had to look deep down inside, and I said, you know what? I have to stand my ground, and I'm not going to get it. And one of the things that first, I went to the transit trustee, Juan Zubi-Zareta, and I explained to him, I said, I'm not getting it. And he was like, I don't know what's the big deal. And at this time, I had filed the religious accommodation. And the PBA never gave out any kind of information on how to fill out the form, so cops were kind of getting it from each other. I mean, there were some delegates that said, oh, listen, my guys are doing this. And so we have like a delegates chat, and we all give each other, pass around information. And so we started like sharing these letters and stuff like that on how to write it up. And then obviously you would make yours personalized to you. And there was a lot of internet information over the internet. And, I was just trying to put together this that applied to me. And I wrote this letter, and it got denied. And so my appeal got denied. And then I filed the second appeal. And that's when I spoke to the transit trustee, and he's like, oh, what's the big deal? I've spoken to, when I go around to these different commands, I speak to these cops. They don't have a problem with it. Nobody brings it up. So I don't know why you're making such a big deal about it. And I try to explain to him, I said, listen, when you have a duty to represent the entire command, whether it's 5% of the command or 95% of the command, those 5% count just as much as the 95%. So you have a duty to defend and protect those cops and to deal with whatever issues that is important to them. And this is important to me, and I deserve representation. And it wasn't there. The PBA, from what I heard, the PBA actually had the nurses from Left Rack go right up to the PBA office and inject all of them with this experimental drug. You know what I mean? So how can you protect me when you can't protect yourself? When you sold yourself out and you took this poison, whatever this experimental poison is, you took it. How can you protect me when you took it already? You understand? And that was the thing. They're cops. You know, those guys working up at the office, they're cops just like the rest of us. So the requirements are for them as well. And those stipends and those trustee checks and those, you know, president checks, vice president checks, that all that money was hanging on a limb, and they're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna stand their ground. They would have lost their spots. So my second appeal was denied, and I had 10 days before I either got received the vaccine or be placed on leave without pay. Now, you know, I don't mind putting my business out there. I got 4 kids and I got a mortgage. And I can't afford a single check. A single check I can't afford to go, you know, with leave without pay. You know, I live check to check like everyone, like most cops. You know, it's a struggle. So I had a decision to make, and you know, I had to dig deep down inside and make a decision and live with it. So I hired an attorney. I actually reached out to Alexander Deletto. Alexander Deletto, you know, he's an unsung hero. He's one of the first cops that actually, from, you know, a cop, not a detective, who won the vaccine legal battle. So I actually got in contact with him, and I explained to him my situation. I said, listen, I'm running out of time. I'm like a few days out. I need to figure out what action am I taking. And he was like, listen, I won my case, and you can win. You just have to, you know, you have to hire an attorney, and you have to go you can't depend on the PBA. So I actually retained Jim Ramirez, and Jim Ramirez was like, you know, I'll take care of everything. You know, he was going to file my TRO and my Article 78, which should have been provided by the PBA under the bylaws. The bylaws state that the PBA is supposed to provide an attorney for matters that deal with work, you know, and they failed. And so Jim Ramirez, and then actually it just happened that everything fell apart and they stopped, you know, pushing the vaccine, pushing the mandates. And but I'm glad that I still retained an attorney, because, you know, what was their next move going to be? Was I going to be placed on leave without pay? I don't know. I guess we'll never know now.
I'm glad that you're talking about this. I mean, no matter what, we'll never know. I mean, this was a dark time, especially for John. John opted to not take the vaccine. He left the job early. I don't hold it against you for taking it. You were backed into a corner. Everyone has their own reasons. What's that?
He didn't take it.
Oh, you did take it. All right, because you got the reasonable accommodation, right? But I did hear that. But what I'm saying is, I don't hold anyone against it that is forced to and ends up taking it, because, you know, I'm into a lot of financial books, and Dave Ramsey says pretty much that 80 to 85% of Americans are 2 paychecks away from being homeless. So this is definitely reflective of what you're saying. Here you are, you got 4 kids, you got a mortgage, and thank God you did get that reasonable accommodation. People like John did not get it. I myself took it. I said many times on the podcast, the reason why I've taken it, I was in the Marine Corps. I got so many shots. I don't know what they gave me. I figured, what was one more? So who was I to say anything? But for people that are backed into a corner, they had to. Exactly what you said. You miss one paycheck and you're back on your bills. So listen, thank God you got the reasonable accommodation, but everybody should that puts it for that religious accommodation, the medical, and everybody. Honestly, I always say they should be in other captions. If you just don't want it, you just choose you don't want it. But other than that, listen, I want to say this. I commend you, because what I saw in my career is most of the guys that get involved in the union, they get involved in the union early on in their careers. We know right now, most of the board members, the executives, they've been part of the PBA the latter part of their careers. But here you are, you said you became a delegate in 2018. So you had 13 years on the job. You already had experience as a cop. So that's quite interesting. At that point, what was your understanding of what it was to be a delegate? And from when you became a delegate to now, what is your understanding of the roles, the responsibilities, and the duties to be a delegate? And if you can tell us, you know, what is the day in the life of being a delegate, other than obviously from your other duties of being a cop, but your actual duties of being a delegate. How do you serve the members?
Well, honestly, it wasn't something I wanted. I never wanted to be a delegate, to be honest with you. The senior guys that were retiring, they were like, you already fight for the cops. You're already picking fights with the bosses and stuff like that. Not that that's what you're supposed to do, but I'm just saying, you're the voice of the cops, and you're always standing up for everybody. And you're the perfect guy for the job. You question everything. And so when my wife actually said, no, you're going to do it. My wife, she's the boss. And I said, she's like, no, you're going to do it because you're already in trouble and you're already always backing up the cops. You might as well get paid for it. Because there is some monetary compensation. You can make more money doing a paid detail, doing overtime, and it's with less aggravation. You have to actually have the heart for it. You actually want to help cops. You want to be there when it's hard, when they're going through a situation. I've been through CCRB's lawsuits, tour changes. To this day, I still get, the fixed posts and the nonsense posts. Oh, you know what it means, And but as a delegate, you're there for the cops. I've done GoFundMe's for cops that had cancer. When a cop is in the hospital, when a cop has a sick child, you do a collection in the command. When a cop has a GO, you show up to that GO. But not only do you show up to that GO, but you kind of give them a heads up because that's a stressful situation. And not everybody's ready for it. So you got to let them know, listen, these are going to be the questions. You got to, you're going to say yes or no. If they ask you, what is this? And do you know what this is? And then they're holding a pen. The answer is yes. You know what it is. You're not going to say it's a blue pen. No, you're going to say yes. And you're going to be short and sweet. You're going to be right to the, just answer the question. You're not going to go into a story because the more you speak, the more questions you're going to get. So, you coach cops through GOs. I've been through so many GOs personally, and then also that I've accompanied cops. It's just a range of things, they have questions whether, how to update the beneficiaries, giving them information that the PBA provides, like the wills program. Some cops don't realize that you're able to get your co-payment reimbursement. You're allowed to get a percentage of that money. You get it back. The PBA doesn't like cops to know that. Listen, you get a little money back. You just go onto your Emblem Health, you print out the explanation of benefits, and you mail that into the PBA at the end of the year, and they cut you a check for it. The insoles, if you wear like those orthotics, those custom insoles, that's a medical equipment that you could write off. You can go on the PBA website, print out the application, fill that, have your doctor fill it out, mail that in, you get reimbursed for some of those custom insoles. So there's a lot of things that, as a delegate that you're helping the cops out. It's not just when they're in trouble. It's not just when they're in trouble. Sometimes they just need they just need someone to talk to. They're having a situation at home. They need a little advice. I've been through a divorce. I've the child support situation. So it's just life experience plus your time on the job. They're going through a hard time, and you're just there to help them out, to hear them out, and be there for them through their hard time, and let them know that they're going to get through it, and they're not the first and they're not the last, and we're all going to be all right.
It's too bad you weren't an LBA trustee. I would have kept you very busy. I got more GOs than guys of college. Hey, but thank you, bro. Listen, you definitely sound like you gave some great insight. But what I like the best about this is you definitely sound like you actually wanted to actually live a life of service, not only just a service of public safety, but with the cops, and you actually cared about them. So your wife was right. Listen, you're already doing it. You might as well get compensated for it. Listen, you and I both know I was an LBA delegate for a period of time. I was an SBA delegate. There's not much money in it, but you do get an opportunity to be a leader and a mentor amongst your peers. So for that, dude, I thank you very much. It's outstanding.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for everybody listening out there, it's not just a PBA during the vaccine mandate. It was all the unions, all the union board members ran out, and just them and their doctor just happened to be every single one of them. They all made that decision. So instead of saying, I'm standing in front of you, which the union is there for, which obviously Franklin just described is what he does. He stands in front of his membership to protect them. He mentors them. He leads them. Instead of standing in front of them, they don't even stand by the side with them. They're like, no, we got your back, but the way back.
Exactly.
So Franklin, you're a delegate at that time. I'm going to bring it back to the vaccine mandate. And now everybody's coming to you for advice. And regardless of the fact, like, I'm glad, I'm very happy for guys like you that didn't have to take it. A lot of my friends had made that like graceful time where it's just, they're like, all right, it's over, it's done. And they couldn't afford to lose any more cops. They were like, oh, what do we do here? So they stopped it. So thank God you retained your attorney. You didn't have to take it. But let's just say you did. Let's say whatever happened, it wasn't an issue for you. What did you see from the questions you were getting from your membership, as well as you had your own, when you brought it to the board? Like, what was those responses like?
What's the big deal? Just get it already. Just get it. You don't listen. And you don't have to work here anymore. You could just get another job. just get another job.
Yep. And
now, how do you say that to somebody who this is their life? You know what I mean? Who, they went to college for this, or they don't have any other skills, or they don't have anything lined up, and that they're behind the eight ball, as they say. You know what I mean? They're just one check away from bankruptcy or something. How do you say that to somebody? You don't know anybody's financials. You don't know anybody's home situation. It's really unfortunate because
what I find extremely problematic, Franklin, is this. Okay, we can't expect them to show moral obligation to every cop and say, okay, and understand you have 4 kids and look into the family nomenclature for every cop. All right, it's a time for compassion, yes, but we can't break down for every family to see who actually needs representation, who's actually in a situation that, missing one check is going to put them in a bad spot. But what they do have is they're a union, they're a board. This is the opportunity that they should whip out their bylaws or refer to the actual contract. Because as far as John and I are concerned, and I'm sure you the same thing here, we all have a pretty similar amount of time that we had in the job. I'm recently retired. John is recently unemployed. But there was never any contractual negotiation or any talk that if we ever suffer a pandemic, what is the plan? Is there a plan? Is there going to be a forced vaccine? This is something that was never discussed. So for it to be a last-minute thing that you could actually be terminated in a matter of a second, that's what I find extremely problematic, is that the union didn't say, hey, this is, because that's all they ever refer to. This is not contractual. This has never even been an issue. But now these guys are going to be terminated within days and have to make a decision. Immediately, they say they have $80 million. That's where the money should have went. That money should have went to the attorneys. That's my opinion.
Not only was it not contractual, but now you're changing the terms of employment, right? And so
exactly,
these are terms of employment. We actually, so you gave us a legal ground to fight it, because there's a case. It's called the 1127, right? That's the city waiver, right?
Correct.
When transit and housing merged with the NYPD, they didn't pay city waiver.
Correct.
So that was something that, okay, listen, if you're going to change the terms of employment, change it for the new hires. But we should have been grandfathered in. We're protected. You want to make it a rule for the new hires? That's a different situation, because now you're signing a contract knowing the requirements, but you can't go up and change the terms of employment for me that's not what the contract that I signed up under.
That's exactly my point. To me, it was like, listen, you went into a basketball game, and then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, no, we just changed the rules. You're shooting that basket, we shoot this basket. Listen, the rules are the rules. We need an ample amount of time to have contractual negotiations to actually prepare for a pandemic. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to have a plan for a pandemic. There should have been, but there never was a plan for a pandemic. And even when we interviewed Corey Grable, and we asked him, what was the plan? What would you have done in response? And what did you expect from the union prior? He said, he really didn't expect much, because we never had this issue. We understand we never had this issue, but that's where the union was supposed to stand strong and say exactly that. We never had this issue. Our members should not have to face potential termination. This was never a contract negotiation. They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They should have stood at the gate of 1PP and said, these guys are not leaving.
Yeah, but it was even bigger than that. Honestly, it was bigger than it violating our contracts. It violated our OEO policy. It violated federal, city, and state OEO law. And now all of a sudden, police officers, the premier law enforcement agency in the world, the largest police unions in the world, in the country, didn't know how to interpret law all of a sudden. It just, all of a sudden, it didn't matter. And I would have been fired in 7 days. But a guy who raped somebody would have had a department trial and would have been suspended without pay for possibly years while his trial went on. And they didn't put up a fight at all. And then, sorry.
And then they're bragging about having $80 million in reserves. Then why didn't you hire these attorneys that were winning cases? If you're the PBA attorneys can't handle it, then hire attorneys that can.
Or at least give us a group Article 78. Like, again, for the public, there was nothing on how to fill out religious exemptions. I was a lieutenant. I gave my religious exemption across the board to everybody. Anyone that asked, I was like, here, take it. Which is not really normal what would happen in police culture. Like, a boss isn't going to give out his personal, medical, private, religious information and be like, yeah, this is what I wrote. It's just not. But I'm like, this is wrong. What's going on? This is absolutely wrong. I didn't even know about Article 78 until I was out for 5 months already. So it was already too late for me. The union did not even advise us on that. It was, kid, you seem like you know what you're doing. You got a good head on your shoulders. Blah, 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 blah. Don't worry, fine. 18 years, 5.0 rated, thousands of incidents without incident, hundreds of arrests without incident, nothing. See you later. And I think so. I know you're saying that's the catalyst. That's what got you to say, you know what? I'm going to run to get into the upper echelon of the PBA. What else did you see as not only as a delegate but as a cop that you felt needs improvement in the union? Like, and it could be anything, just your opinion. Like, like anything.
Let me tell you what happened. So the vaccine was one thing, but then December of 2021, it really got ugly. So I gotta backtrack. I was out with COVID. I got COVID really bad. I was actually hospitalized for a week. I was in the hospital for a week. I did not receive any visits, any calls, anything from the transit trustee. And then finally I went back. I was able to go home, and I was on blood thinners. I was on 2 different types of inhalers. And I got
bed too, John, right?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I got a text message from one of my co-delegates, like, that the trustee was accusing me of scamming because I posted a picture with my family. I actually, the doctor from Left Rack was like, you need to get out of the house. You look pale. You look like you haven't left your house. You have to get out and you have to move around. You can't just stay home. So she actually told me, listen, get out of the house. Go do something. And so I actually I went pumpkin picking. And, I was dying the whole time. I was out of breath because I had COVID. I had COVID pneumonia. I had COVID lungs. And so I was, it took a while for my lungs to get back to normal. And the trustee actually accused me of scamming sick. I mean, the department gave me 3 months home. Why would this department won't even give you 5 days? You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I had documentation. I was really sick. Like, how could someone be hospitalized for a week and they could be scamming? Like, this isn't. It's mind boggling. And so so when I actually came back from COVID and I finally attended those meetings, I walk in and my first meeting back, they're having a meeting about amending the bylaws. It was the political action. They wanted to increase the political action fund. So it was going to go from like 3% to 5% of the union dues to increase. So that was going to be the increase. So it wasn't going to increase the actual dues for the members. It was just going to increase the amount of a percentage of the amount of money that was already being taken to go to political action. Now, the argument was that, it's going to go to the politicians that we support, and it's going to go to make advertisements for the ones we don't. It's for some reason it just didn't add up. It didn't jive. It just didn't sit right with me. And I said, you know what? It just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right to me. And so I voiced it to the trustee. I said, listen, I'm gonna have to vote no on this. Oh, what do you mean? And he starts arguing with me. And so I started talking to Julio Gonzalez. He's actually the delegate from District 12. And we started to have a discussion at the delegates meeting. And I said, are you okay with this? He said, no, I'm not. He's like, I'm voting no as well. And so now the trustee sits with us and he's arguing with us. Oh, this is not going to be good. I don't understand why you got to fight this. And I'm like, it doesn't, you're not making sense to me. And you're not convincing me. And I don't agree with it. And I'm just going to vote no. And I don't understand what's the big deal. I mean, voting no if I don't agree with it. And I don't think that I can come back to my members and sell it to them either. I don't think my members would appreciate that. And then it didn't give me enough time to bring it back to the command to even discuss it with the members. So I voted no. Julio voted no. There was like 7 of us. And then someone went up to them before we even voted. Somebody went up to the mic. I want to say he was the delegate from the 110. I think his name was Ferdinand Rodriguez. He went up to the mic and they started booing him, and Patty told him to sit down, and you didn't invent this. He wanted to have a roll call vote. He wanted to bring it back to the membership and have a roll call vote, because how they were voting was actually not official. They were having they wanted to have a stand-up vote. So people who want to vote, stand up. Everybody who says yes, stand up. All right, everybody sit down. All right, everybody stand up now for no. Now, the problem is that you have random people. Sometimes you have civilians in the room. Sometimes you have somebody brings somebody from their command or their wife, or sometimes some people bring their kids. The point is that you would have to ask, everyone that's not a delegate to step out of the room, and alternates can't vote either. So you would have to ask the alternates to either step out or not to stand or sit. I mean, not to stand for either vote, because alternates can't vote. So in the end, it was 7 of us, and we got booed, and and I think that's when they the PBA put a target on us. Pat Lynch grabbed the mic and was like, take their picture, record them. These are the fabulous 5. He said something like the fabulous 5. And now come to realize that, we were supposed to be the top 5, you know what I mean? The insurgents. And that's when they discovered who the problem were going to be.
It solidifies everything John and I have been talking about, because the delegates, we say the delegates never really have an opportunity to stand out and represent their members in the way that they see fit, and actually voice it to Pat Lynch, to the executives, to the incumbents, because if you don't fall in line, you'll never have a career in the PBA. You'll never have an opportunity to make it to trustee, to move up. You have to fall in line. And obviously, what you just proved is, in a stand-up vote like that, with a room of potential visitors and family members, the integrity of that vote is completely compromised. And for you guys to speak out in a public forum like that just showed complete bravery and courage, because you know what you're up against. And for him to try to bully you guys by saying, take the picture, just shows, well, he's letting you know without saying it, you're going to have no future in this PBA unless you fall in line. So basically, it's either Pat way or no way. So sure. I applaud you for doing that, because that's what you have to do. You have to stand on moral principle. And I just want to reflect on it. That's John and I talk about this on this podcast all the time. That's the problem with the weak leadership, the management of the NYPD, is everyone just falls in line and no one stands on moral leadership. So now that you're in this position, how does someone of your stature that is not in agreement, how do you move forward? How do you face this opposition? And if you do you have a chance to move up in your career, or is it just completely diminished?
Well, now I was going to be blackballed. So the first thing I wanted to do was get back to my command to explain to my cops what happened, and that I stood my ground, and that I did it because I thought it was in their best interest, because I knew right away that they were going to start targeting me, and they did. They started targeting everyone that stood up. Some were one of the guys was a canine guy. The canine guy, so the transit trustee, he went to the command, and I guess he leaked a video or a picture, some kind of audio. They leaked something to the command, and they gave him some crazy made up story that they would lose their easy passes because these are the politicians fight to get them their easy pass, and we support those politicians, and your delegate, he didn't want to give more money to the politicians that give you your easy pass. He spun it to a way where it's something that's important to them, essentially. You understand where I'm going with this? Like, it was something that means a lot to them, and it was something that was gonna get a reaction out of them. And so that delegate, in order to not get any repercussions, he gave up his spot, and the spot actually went to one of Pat Lynch's guys that he got to transit. I know he's the current trustee, the transit delegate.
No surprise, John. Before you go ahead, I just want to say this one thing. So you said that they would target you. So obviously, at that point, you knew what you're about to face. But what did you think specifically that they would target?
Well, actually, they tried to do a special election. So they tried to run a guy in my command against me. And so the guy was, one of the cops from my command was going around handing people a petition and saying, "Oh, if you could just sign this for me, we're gonna get, in order to get an election going." So it's a special election. So in order to have a special election, you need 75% of the command to sign, and then it gets an election going, and then people can run. I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm going to lose. It just means that you're going to force an election. And so he was getting signatures, but he wasn't explaining to the cops from my command that it was for my spot. So now when someone asked, what spot is coming up for election, they were like, "Oh no, it's for Valdez's spot." And then everybody was like, "What?" And then I got the notification. I got a call, and I said, "You know what? Don't sign it. Don't sign it." And until he explains what's going on and explains, and then if you want to sign it, sign it. And so people stopped signing it, and I told them, I said, what have I done wrong? Have I not done my job? "Oh no, it's just I just want to have an election." I said, "But elections were up in November. Why didn't you where was the interest then? You weren't interested then. I ran unopposed. When my election spot came up, it was unopposed. Nobody challenged me. So why now?" It was like like around January or February. So why now? But I knew it had something to do with the voting. And so that went by the wayside. They didn't get enough signatures. And then I realized, I said, "You know what? They came for me. They came for me. And they were starting to come for everyone else that took a vote." And I said, "It's time for me to stand up. I need to move up, and I need to run for a higher position, because there's a lot of wrong that's going on within the union, and somebody's got to put a stop to it."
Yeah, absolutely. So you see all the bullying, you see the can't ask a question, can't have an opposing opinion. From a boss, I think that's the weakest form of leadership there is. A lot of times I'm on a job. It might even be a job that I've done 1,000 times, but I don't see everything all the time. And if somebody's like whispering in my ear, "Hey, boss, we got to do X, Y, Z," I'm not like, "Shut your mouth. I'm the boss." I think about what he said for a minute. You know what I mean? And then, sometimes you need the other vision. And right now what we see is they don't want any other vision. It's my vision or the highway. And I mean, we've seen what went on since they increased the dues. We've seen the history of the last 20 years of the candidates that have gotten the PBA dues. I find it very funny. I was telling Eric this. and this goes for all the unions. This goes for the woke SBA who has me blocked on social media. This goes for the soft LBA. This goes for the CEA. They heavily endorse red candidates in Long Island where they live. They fund leftist candidates in New York City. And I don't understand that. So where you live, you're giving those guys a boost. But where you work and where you earn money, and when it relates to your profession and your career in particular, well, not their career in particular, but all of us as a whole, right? We're going anti-police, and then that makes me question why that is. Why would we be giving funds to a candidate who's anti-police, who does not support the safety of our members, who does not support legislation to help their health and welfare or to help their salary? Why would we give them money? And then I start to think that it's a personal gain, and there's something to be had personally or politically.
Absolutely, I believe that too. I mean, when they turned around and after they got the approval for the to increase the political action fund, they turned around and gave the money to Hochul. And then I'm looking at all the delegates. You guys were okay with this? What do you mean? Now you want to be upset? You were okay with increasing the dues, and what did they do? They turned around and gave the money to Hochul. And the biggest question to me is that when all the other law enforcement unions and agencies, 40 of them, backed Zeldin, why did our union think it was a great idea, or that they knew something that the other unions didn't, and get behind Hochul? What was there had to be another motive. It had to be some kind of backdoor deal, some collusion, whether there was a job offer, whatever the situation was, there has to be something. And I'm sure with some deep investigation, we could figure out what the answer is. Because there's nothing that happens in the dark that doesn't come to light. And we need those answers. And we're going to get them. It might take some time, but we're going to get those answers.
Absolutely. I remember reflecting back when John and I first started this podcast, and John had discovered that there was a substantial fund that was given to Governor Hochul. And I said, wow. I mean, it was just shocking. We had no idea. And then exactly that, the expression, follow the money. So sure enough, John started looking up follow the money. And you look it up on the internet, she's not the only one. I mean, there are numerous leftist anti-police politicians out there that have created legislation that has made obstacles to be a police officer right now, just made it so difficult, which I talk about all the time. And the reason why I think it's important is because the money that they gave to these legislative bodies has attributed to their own enemy, which is a more powerful, more funded civilian complaint review board. Absolutely. That doesn't know where to stop. I mean, we even saw an article where now the Civilian Complaint Review Board is going to have access to every cop's CPI. So for people out there that are listening, cops, if you're not sure what your CPI is, that's your Central Personnel Index. For the families out there, that is your loved one's actual complete file. Everything that is good or bad about them, positive or negative on the job, it completely that the Civilian Complaint Review Board will have access to, which to me makes absolutely no sense. And again, what else do we get from these legislative bodies? The discipline matrix, which until this podcast, no one was talking about. And this discipline matrix has changed the job completely. That's why I hope that someone like you starts to really put their finger on the pulse on this one, because the discipline matrix changes the job completely. Termination was never a factor, but now it's on the table. What do you think about the discipline matrix? And has that been explored and spoken about amongst the union?
Well, the biggest problem that I have with the discipline matrix was that when it was being created, the PBA never sat down. The PBA was never invited to sit at that table and have say over over these punishments. It's cruel. It's cruel. And here's the problem I have with it. It's like you have criminals out here committing robberies, rape and murder, and the bail is less than some of these hits that these cops are facing for a cup of coffee, being off post, not having a personal, not having the shoe shine, not, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you look at some of the stuff in that discipline matrix, I mean, you could even have an unnecessary conversation. Now, what is an unnecessary conversation? Anything. I mean, you got this body camera, right? And not to jump around, but the PBA, you know, dropped the lawsuit against the body camera in order to get a contract, in order to get the neighborhood policing differential. So now that camera is on, and you got to watch what you say. Now you can't curse, you can't have unnecessary conversations. You know, are you recording another cop? They said that they weren't going to use it against the members, and they have been. You know, they've been using it against the members, and that's not what it was intended for. And now they want to bring the discipline matrix and crucify these cops. You know, it's a financial burden. You know, because you know the cops' time is valuable. You know, their time is to be spent with their family, their loved ones, and it's hard enough to get a day off in this department. But now you're talking about taking those days away. There's a monetary punishment. You understand what I'm saying? And criminals are not facing that the amount of monetary punishment that some of this discipline matrix provides. You know, it needs serious attention. That's for sure.
And just bringing up on the body cameras, you know, even that lawsuit, right? Where the members are funding a lawsuit against body cameras, but we're giving money to all the politicians that wanted the body cameras. And then the union drops the lawsuit. You get 2.5% increase, which in my opinion is a slap in the face to completely change policing on its head. And, you know, and they were like the salesman for the body camera. In my opinion, all of the unions, well, I love the body camera. I never see them wear a body camera. All the unions love the body camera. I never see any of them wear a body camera. Everybody loves the body camera, but they all say the truth behind the body camera. It's for transparency and accountability, increased public safety. And what they're saying is what those words are is that they're watching you. So those body cameras were always set up to go after the police. And the union tried to spin it and sell it a different way. And it was such a dishonest message.
And to go into so they didn't get the thing is that what paid for the 2.5% was actually the stretch out of the top pay for the new hires. So the stretch out was 6 months for new hires. So technically we paid the unborn paid for the raise. For that 2.25. That neighborhood policing differential was paid for by the new hires, by the stretch out of the top pay. So in order to get that, they had to drop the lawsuit. But the problem is that, you know, you have these cameras out here and does it help cops in situations? Absolutely. Yes, it does. It's cleared some cops, but that's not what they're using it for. The department is using it for other means. And it's a slippery slope because they're using it as a counting mechanism. They're using it as how they use the 250s. You know, it's a number now. So now they're counting the activations. You know, at the end of the tour, they want to know how many activations did you have. You know, so what is this activity? You know what I mean? Like, so it's counting as activity. They want to know how many activations you had per day. I mean. What are we counting? I mean, what's going on at the palace that everything is always like about counting something, the bean counters.
Everything on this job is a stat. And one thing I tell you, being a special ops lieutenant for 8 years, especially in the South Bronx, we went to CompStat constantly. And there's a stat for everything. There's a stat for complaints of burglaries. There's a stat for complaints of robberies. There's a stat for shootings. There's a 4th stat for guys who have TRIs. And I'm sure right now there's probably some stat for guys that don't put on their body camera. I'm sure there's bosses right now walking around to their cops going like this. You know, make sure you get me a couple of these. You know, but what's sad about this, and just to circle back, and frankly, you know, I talk about this all the time because here you are, you're running for a higher position, but you can relate to the cops right now. You're out there, you're in transit, you have 18 years on the job. But you're part of the modern era. You've transitioned. You have a body camera. You have a business card. You wear a taser. You actually know what it is to face the Civilian Complaint Review Board in its current day, right? Post 2018. You're aware that the discipline matrix is on the table. But the current administration, these guys, that's why I said it was nice of you to say earlier that they're still cops. No. To me, they're not cops. They're employed by the NYPD, but they sure as hell, they're not cops. They don't deserve to be called cop like you. They're police officers, maybe at most, but they're employed by the NYPD. Those guys have never worn a body camera, yet they're negotiating. That's the paradox of this. They're negotiating a body camera stipend that they'll never have to wear. The cops have to bear the body camera, and which changed the game completely. And John, I think you had mentioned it. I think that monetarily, it was $50 every 2 weeks to raise for changing the job completely. John, am I right? Is that what you said? $50?
Yeah, about 50.
So here, exactly. So a $50 raise that changes the job completely, but yet they reap the benefits. They get the raise, but they'll never have to wear the body camera. The second those guys have to go out to wear a belt to show that they're serving the cops for their best interest, they will retire. And we know it. They will not do it. So these guys, they cannot relate to the modern day cop. And that's why I say they don't care about what's in the best interest. They should say, you know what? Franklin Valdez wants to move up, and he's a guy that's out there, and he knows what it is. We could use a guy like that. Help us to help you, and we'll help each other and make this better. But that's not what they want. They're padding the pockets of these leftist politicians. There's no coincidence. Why? Are they getting jobs for themselves? Are they setting careers up for their offspring? Ultimately, we know that. So here you are. You're in a position. You want to move up. So how, if you do get this nomination and ultimately get yourself a position, how would you make changes? What do you see would be your best role? Obviously, you're going to be in transit, but how can you make changes in transit that ultimately could be adapted to be citywide? What changes could you implement to make it better for the cops as we speak?
Well, one of the things that, I don't have all the answers. We have to sit down with management and we have to figure out how can we address some of these quality of life issues, some of these things that cops face on a daily basis. You got cops that are being notified about that they're going to do, 4 hours overtime, and they're being notified at 3:00 in the afternoon when they're, if a day tour cop, and they're supposed to be going home at 3:40, and you're being notified at 3:00 that you're going to have 4 hours overtime. I think that that's really messed up, because you have families, you have responsibilities, you have to pick up your kids, or you have to, you got to relieve your wife, your wife or your husband has to go to work now. It puts a strain on the relationship and on the family life. And there's a lot of things that need to be addressed, whether it's the overtime, whether it's the conditions. Some of these RMPs that we deal with, they don't have air conditioning. The brakes don't work. The headlights are out, and they're working these late tours and the headlights are out, or the gas read is not working. Whatever the situation is, there's a lot of things that cops deal with on a daily basis that are not being addressed, And, the cleanliness of the commands. Somebody sent me a video. There's a rat running around my command in the lunchroom, right on top of the tables. I mean, these are some of these issues, and this is we spend more time in these places than we do in our actual homes, and there's no plant, there's no cleaning, there's no cleaning services. The place is dilapidated. The vents are not clean. There's no air conditioning. You're not. They don't even want you to come back for meal. They don't want. So now you're doing, post tour overtime, and they don't even allow you to come back and take a. They don't want you coming back to the command to take a break. You're working 12-hour tours basically on a daily basis. You're not even given two meals. You're given one meal and told to take personals, but don't take the personal on the overtime. So there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. Punishment, that needs to be addressed. I can just go on and on. There's other things. Also, there's some of these answers are going to come from the membership. One of the things that Pat Lynch, when he ran in 1999, was that he was going to create surveys, and I think that's one way to reach the membership. You could create a survey through SurveyMonkey, whatever the app you want to pick one. And you can say, we're going to create this, and we want to get a consensus from the membership. What's the situation? What are some of these issues that we could be addressing? And that's something that I wanted to implement. I actually created a survey. It never never came to use it. But I created a survey that I wanted to bring to the commands and give a quick link so I can see what are some of the issues that are affecting the membership, because every command has different issues. Every command has, something going on. And, so say, for example, I'm a day tour delegate, but I'm a delegate for the whole command. But every delegate is in a group chat in their tour. So every delegate knows what's going on in that tour. So I'm a strong believer that every delegate on each tour should be on each tour, so you know what's going on each tour. And now we all talk and see, hey, listen, what's going on in the command? Is there any issues? Anything going on? And then now that you would relay that to the trustee. Now that trustee has a delegates chat where he's getting all that information from all the different commands. And now what is something, now we can figure out what's affecting the membership. And now we take this to management and we address these issues. Because if you have a happy cops, you got, happy bees create more honey, right? You can't argue with a fly why he wants to deal with shit, right? But this is how you deal with it. You're gonna address the problems, and you're gonna have happy cops, and you can increase the quality of life.
I think that's a great idea, and I'll tell you why. I was a boss for a long time, actually most of my entire career, and I said the key to success was communication and building relationships. I built relationships with my cops, and we always communicated with each other. The information was always flowing. No one was left in the dark. And when everyone is actually informed and the information is flowing, everyone feels involved, and it is better quality of life when you're at work. You're not going to work and saying, hey, what's going on? So the idea that you want to exchange information and keep each other informed and build a relationship, that builds a stronger bond. That's what we want from a PBA union. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing that ultimately it's just about self-preservation and for their own pockets.
Right. And another thing is that, like some of these cops, they're not even getting visited. When I started campaigning and I started visiting the midnight cops, the midnight cops never get any visit. They never get the pizza visits. Usually the day tours might get some bagels here and there, but it's the 4 to 12 that are getting the pizza visits. They call them pizza patty. What are they doing is they go into the commands and they're dropping off pizzas, and the members think that like, oh, these are nice guys. No, your union dues are paying for that pizza. They drop them off for union dues, and they're out the door. They're not even answering any questions. And that's the most vital time, because, all right, that's fine. Listen, I'm not saying the pizzas are bad. Bring the pizza, but ask the members what's going on. It's simple. Hey, listen, is there anything that needs to be addressed? Anything that's concerning, anything that's going on in the command that needs to be addressed? And then there needs to be taken up all the way up the ladder. It's just, you got to hold the top executive board accountable for whatever issues are not being addressed, any concerns, and then it goes all the way up to the top.
Yeah, well, you got to care first, not just around election time that I see all these guys that I've never seen in my 18 years on the job. Even when I was a cop close to 7 years. I never seen any of these guys. I didn't know. I knew who Pat Lynch was, but I never seen any of them.
And you couldn't name any of them.
I couldn't name one of them. I don't know any of them. And the ones that I can name, they were shit cops. I would never vote for them in my life. Like, they were self-serving people, even when I knew them as cops. So, I'm like, I wouldn't. I want to get into what took place, but before we do that, because you're giving everybody a lot of great information, and before we get into why you're being told you're disqualified from the ballot and the transit trustee, what are your thoughts on this contract and the overall contract negotiations?
Well, as I posted on Instagram, it's not a gift. It's not a gift. It was something that was owed to us. It's far from amazing. It was long overdue. I'll say that. It was long overdue. But did I think it was amazing? No. Because if you look at the numbers from 2017 to 2023, it's about 19%, right? And the problem with inflation is over 20% for the same time period. From 2017 to 2023, the inflation was over 20%. So essentially, you didn't get a raise. What you got was a cost of living adjustment, because it didn't pass the cost of living. So, and then here's the problem. The first 3 years you got pattern. You got 2.25, 2.5 in the 3. That was initially offered 3 years ago, but now you're taking it at a devalued amount, at a devalued it's devalued, because the dollar value went down, inflation, interest rates and credit cards. So it's accumulated debt that you've had now, if you've been living off your credit cards, and now the PBA took when they could have took that 3 years ago, but now you're taking it, and they said that they didn't want to take it back then because it was a healthcare give back. But now we realize that there was a healthcare give back now. So essentially we took the exact same deal that we told. The PBA had always said that they wouldn't sign on to the MLC and were anti-MLC. And then a lot of people missed it, but it was in like a little fine print. It was like in little small letters, MLC.
Frank, hold on 1 sec. Is he coming in, John?
Yeah, hold on. You're breaking up. Hold on 1 sec.
Yeah, 1 sec. You
got any noise in the background by you, Franklin?
No.
Eric, I'm going to mute you real quick. All right, sorry. Go. It was him.
You're in timeout.
Yeah. No, sorry.
No, so the situation was that I'm sorry, I lost my chain of thought.
We're talking about the MLC deal.
So the MLC, it was like a little fine print, and they didn't give any explanation. Dave Nicholson, which is the health and welfare attorney, he went on about some nonsense, but never mentioned the word, never said MLC, never mentioned those initials, and then the information started to come out, and so I started to make posts about it, and then all of a sudden the PBA sent out an email, basically trying to discredit me for putting out the real information, but everything that essentially what they did was they confirmed everything that I said was true. The MLC is a give back. Now, does it affect everyone? No, it doesn't affect everyone. It affects those 65 and older and those retired disability. So anybody who got 3/4 is going to be put under the Medicare Advantage plan. The Medicare Advantage Plus plan, it's essentially going to be Aetna, and it's going to have the higher cost. So what they're doing is they put in the cost on those 65 and older and those disabled, so that all the active members and those under 65 have the free health care. For now, eventually that's all going to be subject to change as well. When they need to save, it's supposed to be a savings plan. And when they can't find the savings, they're going to have to come after the active. And that's just one of the give backs. We don't know what other give backs are in the contract until we get the draft, because we hired the PERB arbitrator, right? And he has to show the work, right? Because he received $7,000, right? He gets $3,500 from the PBA and the other half he gets from the city for his fees per day. So he's receiving essentially $7,000 a day. He's got to show work for it. So what we need to see is the draft, the proposal. We want to see the fine print. What are the givebacks? What paid for the raise, right? That's where you'll know how we paid for it, right?
7,000 per day.
Before you go, I just want to correct one thing, because a lot of guys are saying that, it doesn't affect everybody. It does, because like you're saying, you don't know what's coming down the road for the active guys, but we gave away healthcare at our most essential time when we're going to need it the most. You don't need healthcare in your 30s, your 40s, your 20s. No. You need it when you're 65. And
you're on a fixed income.
And that's why we took this job, and that's why we always made less money. It's like, we'll have healthcare, and we'll have, you're not going to have the in-ground pool. You're going to have the above-ground pool, right? And but you'll never starve, and you'll always have healthcare. And I don't know that that's going to be true anymore. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm just glad that everybody's getting their money. And then I thought that everybody was going to get their money right away. But now, everybody said, the PBA put out an email saying, the sooner you ratify it, the sooner we can get paid, basically. And then that wasn't the case. Now they're telling us that we're not getting paid till July 21st. Now, so does that mean that we got zeros for 3 months since we wrap? I don't know that. We don't know that yet. The PBA hasn't really answered that. They haven't specified whether we got zeros. But Patty didn't take zeros. I don't know that. We don't know that yet. But I'll tell you one thing though, he ran out the door and he couldn't run out fast enough. What is he running from?
Or what is he running to?
Where is he running to? Did he get a job offer? I guess we're gonna have to find out. But like I said, nothing happens in the dark that doesn't come to the light.
That's right, brother. Let me tell you, before we go into why you're disqualified, which excuse me, which I think is completely important and is the focal point of your campaign here. But the actual contract itself, I asked Derek and I asked Corey, and I want to ask you the same because no one has seen it. I speak to cops all the time on a daily basis. We talk about the Civilian Complaint Review Board, of course, the Matrix, but no one has seen the contract. What's in that contract? And honestly, I find it very questionable that a pilot program would be in the contract. This modern chart, is it in the contract? And is there anything else? The sick policy, vacation, tours changed when you could get your time and a half if you're 25. What's in this contract? We don't know. Do you know?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I voted on the contract, it didn't even allow you to access to see it. So you couldn't even see it on the American Arbitration Association website when you were going to vote. It wouldn't show you the contract. So you're just going on faith, basically, on that the PBA is acting in good faith, and you're just gonna have to take their word for it. They send you like a little pamphlet. This is a little pamphlet, and these are what you're getting. But the pamphlet says you're getting a pilot program. A pilot program. It doesn't guarantee the 12-hour tours, and it doesn't guarantee the specific schedules. It doesn't make any kind of guarantees. So how can you put something like that in the contract? I don't believe that. And what if it doesn't work out? So if the pilot program doesn't work out, what?
John and I just spoke about that today. I said, John, this doesn't make any sense. How could this be in the contract? It's an experiment. I mean, if the experiment doesn't work, does the whole thing just blow up? I mean, who decides? Do they have to go back to the PBA and say, listen, this didn't work? Do we go back to the drawing table, or is it just completely out? No one knows anything. It's the most ridiculous thing. I mean, it's like one of those things. You go buy a car, and they're like, hey, listen, kid, you get 4 oil changes in 2 years. And then you go get the oil change. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's the oil change here. No. What did you sign? Oh, no, that's for tires.
Don't worry. It sounded good, right? That's all that matters.
Yeah, and just to go back on the 3 months of zeros, right? I asked every delegate that I know that accuses me of spreading misinformation, and they've actually accused you and Derek of spreading misinformation too, and Eric as well, without ever being able to identify one thing that we've said that's misinformation.
I just want them to tell me one thing that I lied about.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But like I posed the question to all of them. I said, because you put out online, I saw something you put out, and you said where the PBA drafted an email and said upon ratification you'll be paid out immediately, right? Which is not in their purview to say, because it's up to the city when they will pay that out. So they gaslit the membership on there to ratify a contract they've never seen. So everybody signed off on a contract they never seen. They took Pat Lynch's word for it. And if history proves anything, it's that I would never take that guy's word for anything. But they did again. And again, like you said, they're starving. You need the money. It's a contract they earned. But we ratify the contract in April, and you're not getting paid out to July. Is the retro from starting from July going all the way back to when you're out of contract? Or is the retro starting from when the contract was ratified all the way back to when you're out of contract? Because guess what? If you only got paid till April, that's 3 months of zeros, where they said they would never take a zero. And nobody has answered that question. Not one trustee.
I didn't answer that question. I don't know that answer.
Nobody's answered the question. And it was just a question posed. And like you said, you put out stuff online. I put stuff out online, and emails come jumping, right? Saying, oh, misinformation and all this other stuff. We haven't seen one rebuttal to that. I'm very curious as to what that contract looks like. Because like you said, we don't know what's in it.
But I tell you this, if you've noticed, every time you guys put out something or I put out something, it forces the PBA to give out the legitimate information. We actually force their hands. I think we're the reason why cops even got a contract to begin with. It was you guys posting stuff and me posting stuff. They're getting attacked from every end, from every angle, and it's forcing their hand. And it's because if you ask me personally, I think that they use this perp and stretching out this stuff just as an election purposes, because it just so happens that it always happens during election time. And you always get a contract right before election. Why? Because you distract cops with retros, and then they forget everything about that. Every reason why they were pissed off, why they wanted to vote, and throw everybody out. Because you dangle the carrot, and then they forget. But when I'm going to make sure that they don't forget, because I'm going to keep reminding them.
Oh, they won't forget. They won't forget. There's 1,000 ways to tell a lie and only one way to tell the truth. And you know what? Maybe that's why they're saying it's misinformation, because we're misdirecting the bullshit information that they put out, causing them to now put the real information out. So yeah. So you know what? They're right. It is misinformation. It's missing from. It's the missing information that they didn't give to the guys. Exactly. That's what it is. But you know what? The reality. But Franklin, think about this, right? John, you know what I talk about it. How easy is it? You put stuff on Instagram all the time. John and I are on Instagram and Twitter every day. I'm trying to keep up with John. He's the mad Twitter, right? It's easy. They can just put up something and say, look, here's what John put, or here's what Eric put, or Franklin, and here's the truth right next to it. But they can't. It would be so simple. I mean, it's out there for the public. They could just rebuttal this, but they can't. Because it's the truth. Like I said, 1,000 ways to tell a lie, only one way to tell the truth. And you know what? You stood on moral principle. That's why when John and I saw the work that you were putting into this, we said, you know what? That's a guy that we agree with, because you remind us of ourselves. You got balls. And that's what you need. That's what you need when you're being part of a union. You have to be willing to stand up to management. You have to be willing to stand up for what's not popular, but it's in the best interest for the cops. And
there's no balls on that delegate body. I tell you that much. It's very few balls on that delegate body. It's disgusting, actually.
We know that. Listen, John and I were both on the job, right? It wasn't that long ago. We know that. And we were cops too. And that's the one thing. Listen, they say, oh, why do you guys care? You guys were bosses? Because we were cops that led other cops. We care. We care about them right now. Why don't they care? You know, why not? Can you speak to that?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I try to explain it to cops, and oh, who cares? What do you mean, who cares? This is your job. This is your benefits. It's funny. Like there's a trustee that's been bashing me on Instagram, and he's been targeting. He posts my picture, and he's trying to antagonize me. His name is Tommy Gilmore. Tommy Gilmore is the Brooklyn North trustee. He's actually posted on Instagram. He's polishing his fishing boat. Did he get his retro before we did? Or because cops are here debating whether they have enough money to buy a sandwich, and this guy's out here polishing his fishing boat. So clearly he got his retro, or maybe the PBA got their stipends and they're already getting their money. But you know what? The members aren't. And here you got a Brooklyn North trustee polishing his boat, getting ready to put his boat in the water. It's a crying shame, while the members are starving.
Nah, and listen, everything, I got to say, it's an honor to have you on here, because
it's an honor to be on here.
Everything that you put out online, I don't know you personally, right? I don't know you from a hole in the wall, right? We were on the same job together. I don't know if we ever interacted with each other. But everything I saw you posting online, me and Eric were talking about it, and I'm like, this kid's not full of shit, man. I'm like, this is coming from his heart. Like, because there were times, and I'm not even gonna lie, there were times that something popped up and I was gonna write about it, and it was already up there because you were putting it out there. You and Derek, you were putting it out there. Specifically, your account was like, you were creating all this stuff. And I was like, I'm telling you, this kid he's going through it, and he's putting out from his heart and from his head. I'm like, and that's why I've been retweeting your stuff and sending it out on Instagram and stuff like that, because I believe in my heart that you actually care about what you're saying. And the stuff I see from the other side, and I don't care about, and I wish they would attack me personally with the way they do you, like with their name, but they don't. They come on with these fake accounts for me and Eric, and it's but the stuff that they do in their real name, it's not genuine, man. It's not at all. And so I applaud you for that. And if you could bring us to today and what's going on with you and what happened in your own words, and what the PBA is telling you why you're not on this ballot.
Well, I never even got to mention, that so me and Derek, we teamed up because we actually met at we met at the delegate meeting, but we also, when we really hit it off at one of Corey's fundraisers, and we got to really serious talking, and I realized that me and Derek, we are like-minded, and we wanted some of the same things, and we both cared, and we're both passionate about this. And as I told Derek, I'm going to run for trustee. And he's like, well, I'm going to run for financial secretary. And then that's when we realized, maybe we need to work together and we need to come together because we both want some of the same things. We're like-minded. He stood up against giving the money to the leftist politicians that the PBA wanted. And I said, let's work together. And so we both been hitting these commands and stuff like that. We've been campaigning since I think October last year, and we've invested our personal money because you can't, you don't have it. This is how we never did a fundraiser. We never raised any money. We were out there giving pens, stickers, flyers, anything we could. Sometimes we would bring food to the commands, whatever we can afford at the time. We're taking it away from our households, but we're because we're passionate, but we want the cops to know that we're serious about this. One thing that the other side hasn't done, they weren't providing any kind of food. They had leftover pens from some 4 years ago, and all of a sudden they did a fundraiser to give cops bottle openers and beer cups, beer mugs. I don't know why you want to do that, but I'm not even going to get into that. They're not even worth mentioning. So what happened was that one of the biggest failures of the PBA was that they failed to inform the members of the procedures, of the rules and the procedures on how to run for these executive positions in this upcoming election. So what they did was they put out the PBA put out an email on May 4th of 2023 explaining the rules and the procedures on how to run. So it said you needed to attend 10 meetings a year prior, and you needed, and then you needed a certain amount of signatures for trustee, for citywide trustee, and so on and so forth. So for a trustee or a financial secretary, you need 10 signatures within your bureau. So if you're running for the transit bureau, I needed 10 signatures. Derek Andrews needed 10 signatures. Now, if you're running for a citywide position, that requires 20 signatures. And if you're running for like financial, for treasurer or recording secretary, you need 20. And then president needs 25. So Corey Graber needed 25 signatures. Now, what happened was that the PBA or the executive board was reaching out to the delegates, and it started all the way back to the PBA convention back in August, end of August of 2022. They at that convention, they actually pulled members to the side and corralled them from their bureaus, and they threatened them. They said, if you sign any petitions, they're gonna squash you, or they're gonna come after you, and they're gonna crush you. So they threatened some of these delegates. And another thing they do is they bribe them. They bribe them with alcohol and steaks, and they take them out to dinner, and they take them out, for drinks, and they lure them in with committee checks. It's nonsense. You understand what I'm saying? You're getting $300 extra for the year to sell your members out. Is that what it's worth to you? I mean, just go resign as a delegate. Go back to your command. Go do a paid. Sorry, excuse my language, but go do a paid detail. Go do something else. Because this is a serious union, and we're recognized all throughout the world. Forget about New York. We're recognized throughout the world, and you're selling out the members for a $300 check or whatever it is for a beer, for a steak. You're pathetic. You're pathetic. And how can you look at yourself in the mirror? How could you stand at a roll call and address your command, knowing what you do, who you really are? I can stand with courage and I can stand with fortitude, knowing of who I am, and I'm positive in who I am. And I think I demonstrate that. There's no hesitation. I am who I am, and this is this. I'm not putting on a facade here. This is me. And so what happened with me was that I missed the meeting in May 17th. It was May 17th was the meeting in 2022 that I missed, that they're saying that I missed. So I missed one meeting. One meeting. That's all. It's the only meeting I've ever missed. I missed one meeting. And the reason why I missed the meeting was because the PBA decided to wrongfully violate the bylaws. The bylaws, Section 12, Article 12, Section 2 states that the PBA meetings are supposed to be held on the second Tuesday of every month. And that particular meeting in May 22 was moved to the 17th, precisely when I would be away out of the country. And I didn't receive the letter of the invitation to the meeting until the 13th, 4 days prior. I was already out of the country. And so what they did was that they brought it up so they disqualified me. And they also gave me letters of signatures of people who pulled their signatures from my petition. Now I had about 17 signatures, so I had more than enough. So two people that actually pulled their signatures, well, one of them wasn't even on my petition. One of them didn't even sign my petition, but she submitted a letter. Her name, I'll say it, because listen, here's the thing, right? Once you become a delegate, you enter the political arena, right? Once you become a delegate, this is political work, whether it's, speaking to the CO or addressing cops, you're a liaison, it's a political position, right? You have to run an election when the position comes up for election. So you have to campaign. So here's the thing, she signed a letter stating that she wanted to remove her signature. Her name is Yaneli Suarez from District 11, right? Now, Yaneli Suarez never signed my petition. So why did she write a letter saying she wanted to remove herself from my petition? That doesn't make sense to me. So someone told her, did you sign? I don't know what I signed. I signed a bunch of petitions. Well, here's a letter. Sign this just in case you did. We could remove it. Somebody must have coerced her, threatened her, offered her something, and she signed. Another person who signed was Diana Caraballo from District 3. And on her letter, it actually states that she was assigned to District 11 when she's really assigned to District 3. So at that point, I realized there's been tampering. These people are being contacted. And the worst part about it was that when I found out that the transit trustee was reaching out to people, calling the delegates to pull their signatures, I started going down my list and calling people because I wanted to confirm that I can count on their support and that they weren't pulling their signatures, so that there wasn't any surprises come nomination time. So I actually called and spoke to Diana Caraballo and I said, listen, hey, I heard Zuby was reaching out to people to pull their signatures. I just want to know if I can count on your support or if you want me to remove your signature. And she said, no, absolutely not. He did reach out to me, but you can count with my support. And then the day of the nomination, here's this letter. So you backstab me. I don't understand. Why? If you would have called me and gave me the respect, and said, listen, hey, I'm having second thoughts, is it all right if I pull my signature, and I would have pulled it. I would have scratched the name out and it wouldn't have been a problem, right? Because I had enough signatures. I didn't really need it. But the fact that you wrote that letter, and then the letter was dated the day of the nominations, and she wasn't at that meeting. So when did you submit this letter?
First of all, Franklin, you just gave some fantastic information for people that are watching this right now that are not cops or getting highly educated about how the union works. For cops that are on the job probably 20 years that have no idea, they learn themselves. Honestly, myself, I'm learning from listening to you. There's a lot of information to unpack here. So I just want to tell the public, for our viewers out there, Franklin Valdez is running for New York City PBA Transit Trustee. And what that means, what he just said, is that he is required to get a certain amount of signatures from the union so that he can, just to be nominated. What you're saying is this is not even to be elected. This is just so that you can be nominated to campaign to be elected.
Right.
So here we are, this potential fraud, potential election tampering to impede you and create an obstacle just for you to get nominated to run for the campaign. And the other caveat you're talking about here is the attendance. So what I want to ask, what I'm curious about this, so you're talking about the meetings. So I was an SBA delegate, I was an LBA delegate, but I never had aspirations to move up in that case. I just enjoyed representing members. It was a smaller unions, not as big as the PBA, obviously when you're with the SBA and the LBA. But what's interesting to me is with these meetings, I remember there was, of course you had your meetings, but then you had functions. So what is considered a meeting? So if I just show up to a function, what is considered attendance? Is a function a meeting? What exactly is the criteria for a meeting?
Well, according to the bylaw, it has to be a regular meeting. So according to the definition of a regular meeting, it would be a monthly meeting. That monthly meeting. So now, even though like we had in, let's say, for example, April of 2023, we had 2 meetings because there was news about the contract. The contract came down. So although there was 2 meetings in April, only one of them counted as the monthly meeting. The other one was like a specialty meeting because we had a contract, because it was because the contract came down. So we had to meet on that to vote on it. But per se, for example, the PBA convention, right? Technically, you get 3 MEO 75 days. That's Mayor's Executive Order 75. Basically, it gives you permission to be assigned from your command to this particular location. So you're excused from work. So it's not coming out of your personal days. It's coming out of a negotiation between the PBA and the city, where it's not coming out of your time. Am I following? So these MEO 75 days, you get 3 of them during the convention. That's going to be, it was like this last year, 2022 was August 31st, September 1st, and September 2nd. So technically, although I was upstate at the convention for 3 days, they only want to make it count as 1 meeting, when essentially, but I was, even though I was up there 3 days, and it's considered 3 meetings because it's for the month of August, September, and July. I mean, July, August, and September. That's 3 meetings. But their argument is, no, it's only 1 meeting. It's only 1 meeting. We only had 1 meeting. I know, but I get 3 days off, and it's for 3 months, right? And you get checks for worth of 3 months, right? 3 months worth of checks. Because you get 1 check per month, right, as a delegate. But you give me 3 months at the convention. You give me 3 checks. And you give me 3 MEO 75s. Technically, it's 3 months. It's 3 meetings. But they want to make it sound like it's only 1. But anyway, so they're saying, so I missed that 1 meeting, and that would have gave me the 10 meetings with that month, that May that I missed. Now, the problem is that, like I said, they violated the bylaws. They wrongfully changed the date from May. It should have been May 10th, but it was changed to May 17th. Exactly when I'd be on vacation. How did they know that? And so what happened was that they disqualified me. Actually, I got a call from Dave Nicholson, who's the health and welfare attorney. Now, I don't know what his involvement is with this election, but I found it strange that why is he calling me? So I guess he was overseeing the Tellers Committee. The Tellers Committee is the committee that it's composed of delegates from throughout the borough. It's like 22 delegates, 2 from each bureau, and they vote on they go over the candidates and see if they qualify, and then they vote. They vote on who's eligible to continue. So now they disqualified me for missing 1 meeting. And
it's a closed room.
What happened?
This vote is in a closed room, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and then here and there's problems with that situation as well, because some of those delegates posed on the Instagram with Team Henry T-shirts. So some of them were at fundraisers at some of these Team Henry fundraisers, and then some of them are alternates. So technically, they're not even allowed to vote. Some of them are alternates, so they're not even allowed to vote. So how are you in a committee when technically you're an alternate? You're not even allowed to vote. There's a lot of discrepancies. There's a lot of problems, and then now you have Dave Nicholson, who's the health and welfare attorney, who's overseeing this, how is this not a conflict of interest? How is this not a bias, right? When Dave Nicholson, and I'll give some, the viewers some information on Dave Nicholson. Dave Nicholson testified during the Bronx ticket scandal against cops and received immunity for it. And I try to bring it. So they granted me an appeal, and I actually went to the PBA office, and they Julio got disqualified as well, but he got disqualified for lack of signatures because, like I said, that girl Yaneli Suarez pulled her signature from his petition, and so they try to say that he didn't have enough signatures, that he was missing one. And of course, when you reach out to the delegates and you pressure them, or you coerce them, or you threaten them, or offer them something in order to exchange, I don't know where in the bylaws does it say that someone's able to pull their signature. Once you sign something, you sign an affidavit, you can't pull your signature. That doesn't work like that. I don't know in what political arena you could submit a vote, or you could, because essentially it's not a vote. It's just allowing the members to have a choice, right? Did I agree with the contract? Absolutely not. I didn't agree with it. I wasn't 100% in agreement with it, but I didn't feel that I could decide that. So I voted yes to send it to the members, because I shouldn't be able to make that choice for the members. The members should decide for themselves, right? So I voted yes to send it to the members to let them have right? And then it got approved overwhelmingly, because it was done properly. But this whole, I'm not signing a petition because then that means I swear an allegiance. No, you signing a petition just means that you're okay with me running, right? Now, you don't have to vote for me. That's not a vote, right? But they try to explain it to the delegates. Well, if you sign their petition, that means you're with them. You're my enemy. And and what they do is they target these delegates, and they try to run special elections in their commands to remove them, or whether they go to the COs and maybe tell the CO, hey, listen, that's my enemy. I don't know what they do, but they make it uncomfortable for those delegates. And I'm sure some of those delegates that sign my petition are probably going to be targeted down the line, because they're free thinkers, or because they actually wanted to allow their members to have a choice, to have a vote, to be able to vote, to have a candidate. But they denied that. They denied me. They denied Julio that chance. They basically eliminated all the candidates because Corey couldn't get enough signatures, right? So he couldn't even get nominated because he didn't have enough signatures. They blocked candidates. And I think they saw me as a potential maybe future president, and they saw me as a potential a future candidate, and they needed to block me early on. They had to stop me as an unborn, don't even allow me a chance to become a trustee to then maybe aspire to something different, something even higher. And they needed to stop me early on. And this is how they did it. They found out when I was on vacation. And so at my appeal hearing, they actually presented some evidence against me. They said they had a sworn statement from my co-delegate at Transit District 20, Arturo Lanuza, wrote a statement stating that he texted me that he picked up my check for me, and that and then I texted him back to leave it in the PBA locker. So he had a sworn statement plus text conversation giving me up, basically saying that I wasn't at that meeting. Then they also acquired screenshots of like department computers, with my CPR, with my 28 information, saying that I wasn't in the command or whatever, that I had submitted a 28 for that time period. And they were trying to use this against me. And I said to Dave Nicholson, I said, you're violating department guidelines. Are you trying to use this illegally obtained information against me? And because that's something you need to, that's a different situation now. If you're trying to use this against me. And they gave me a letter saying that it was submitted by, the current trustee, Zubi Zaretta. So he's the one who actually submitted this to the PBA. So that's something that's up for question as well. What was this information that they obtained? They obtained it properly, because you want to use the bylaws against me. You want to say that I missed the meeting, but you're not holding yourself up to the bylaws. They violated the bylaws. They're not holding the meetings on the second Tuesday as per the bylaws. It's clear. It's in black and white. It says And here's what it says. It says the meetings are supposed to be held on the second Tuesday of the month, barring this. Obviously, if there's an exigency, it says that the president may change the time and place, but not the date. It says time and place, right? Now, if you guys have seen 161s, right? There's different captions, right? There's a caption for the time, a caption for the date, and a caption for the place, right? You just don't put time and in the same time, the date and everything is in one box. No, separate boxes, right? So just like the bylaws, it should have been separate, right? And the attorney Dave Nicholson was trying to say that, it's ambiguous and it's up to the interpretation of the president, and it's actually not. The bylaws are there to protect the members from a monarchy. The bylaws are there to protect the members, not for the president's interpretation. And I had a problem with that. And I stated a strong case. I made my point. I made my case to the Tellers Committee, but I can clearly see that it was biased. Some of these guys were the same ones holding up the Team Hendry posters on Team Hendry Instagram. You know what I mean? Like how can you honestly say that you're unbiased and that you're willing to hear me out when just 2 days ago you were wearing a T-shirt and holding up a poster? It's nonsense. You denied, but you didn't just cheat me from an election. You cheated the membership, because that's what you did. You cheated the membership from having an option. But what is it? What are they so scared of? What are you scared of losing? They were going to lose by a landslide, and they know it. They know it. So that's the only way that they could have won this election, is by not having one. They made the decision of who the candidates were going to be, and they. So I don't even like to call them. The people that are going to be representing this union are they're going to be representing the union by default. So that's what I'm going to call them: the default president, the default vice president, because that's how they got their positions, by default, by technicality. They don't deserve those positions, and they didn't earn those positions.
It's tyrannical, dude. Honestly, forget this. This goes beyond election tampering. Really does. Goes beyond it. Like every little thing that you labeled out there, and I'm not going to repeat it all because it was so much and so in depth, but every scenario that you said there, it was tampering, all the way up until you get to the oversight of the whole election. And the oversight of the whole election is completely biased. And like you said, they have an attorney there that's the health and welfare attorney who's also biased, who's also interpreting it to keep the monarchy in. This is a tyrannical government. This is things that we've seen in Cuba. This is what we see in Russia. This is what we see in all of these countries where, the president overwhelmingly wins every time, unanimously, unopposed. 100% they are default, right? And I'm glad that Derek was able to get through. But you and Julio should also be on that ballot. Absolutely.
And I put my full support behind Derek. That's the only real election that we have going on right now. And so transit members need to understand they weren't given a choice. You understand what I'm saying? These people were selected, right? The only option they have that's outside of this monarchy is Derek Andrews. He's the only real candidate. Everything else was chosen. From what I've been hearing from the transit cops is that, and McPhee hasn't even really spoken. They never really gave him a chance to even present a platform or present a real plan for the members. No real plan. So they've been going with him to all these transit commands. Basically, it's intimidating, right? They all walk in, it's a whole team, versus sometimes I've hit roll call by myself. Derek hit roll calls by himself. Or sometimes, it was just us two. Now, all of a sudden, I noticed recently that Derek is, McPhee is going on by himself, right? All of a sudden. But what happened to the team? They realize they're getting beat up in transit. Nobody wants to see them. Everybody, I think the cops are more aware, right? Because, when I first came on, cops weren't aware because you didn't have social media. And so there was kind of like a lack of information. So you weren't aware of what's going on. Everything was a big secret. and it was intentionally done that way. It's by design. But now with social media, everything's made public, and you could get the information. I'm posting a lot of the information on my Instagram, and cops are loving it. They're like, "Wow, that's crazy." You're exposing them. It takes courage, but I know that at the same time, I'm doing it for the members. I'm not here to bash the union. I'm here because the only way we can make it better is by actually admitting where we make mistakes, where we're wrong, and where we're failing, and then this is how we address it. We have to own it.
Franklin, you said something earlier that I think is so important that we have to point out. You said you were out there hustling to get the message out to help the cops with no money. You bought some pens with the little funding that you had. And that goes out to what John and I have been saying. It's the same thing on this podcast. We've been doing this with no funding. We're not making any money. We're not putting out any money to do this. It's just work. And that's the power of social media. And that's why we said, why didn't the union use the power of social media to address this forced vaccine? Why did they use the power of social media to address this overzealous CCRB? Why did they use the power of social media to address the discipline matrix? Why did they use the power of the media to get a contract that beats inflation? Why did they do all these things? Why? Because they exactly what you said. What they do in the dark will come out in the light. Everything they've been doing is behind closed doors. And I will say this: everything that you're saying is great. Again, we have to unpack all the stuff. When we go back and we actually watch this podcast, you gave up some really great points. You gave up a lot of information. I think our viewers are going to have to watch this more than once because you gave out a lot of stuff. There's a lot to unpack here. But in a 24-year career that Pat Lynch had as the PBA president, and elections come up every 4 years, what I think to myself, and I know John's thinking the same thing, and so are you, is how many elections have went in this process where they went unopposed and where people were pushed out and forced out like yourselves, like you and Derek, especially you and Julio now who are disqualified. But how many elections that went on like this and they didn't have the power of social media and they didn't have the balls that you have to stand up? I tell you what, and I say this honestly, this comes from the heart, whether you win or not, you are a winner. You are going to create real change with the PBA going forward, and you got us to back you up. We're going to continue to back you up. Someone has to speak out right now. It's going to change forever. And I'm confident, John and I said it earlier, you will be the PBA president one day. I'm sure of it. When you come back on this podcast in a couple of years, and for the naysayers out there, they will see, we'll be bigger than before. You will come on and we'll say, hey, congratulations, Franklin. You are the PBA president.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It comes to fruition. But it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a legal battle because it's an uphill battle. But I think if a judge hears this whole situation, they're going to agree that there was some wrongdoing here, and that the president actually violated the bylaws, and the PBA has been violating the bylaws for some time now, and that they haven't been acting on the members' behalf. And one of the first things that I think is important to get done. Once I would take office, is get a forensic accountant in there to do a forensic audit, because I want to know where the money's been going. And you see it happened with the SBA union, it happened with the state troopers union. And we got to follow the money. We got to figure out where the finances has been going. How is it that a nonprofit organization is worth $80 million and is standing up there bragging about it? Why is the vice president of the union, calling himself the Joe Pesci of the PBA? What do they think? This is a mafia?
I don't know. Listen, I watched all those mob movies. And I never seen Joe Pesci tuck tail, sell out his members, retire, and then come back. Like Joe Pesci was. He's definitely not the Joe. He's more like the Henry Hill of the PBA. So that's what he is. He was the one that testified against for the dirty shit that he was doing. Testified against his own members, retired, and came back when the coast was clear. So he's definitely, and for somebody to be saying that, and the same way that they attack you, it's awful. But I know exactly why they do it, dude. Because again, this is the first time where, like, even though it's over the thing, this is the first time I face to face. 100%, dude. You're presidential. 100%. You're talking from the heart. I know the rank and file in the PBA supporting you. I know that the guys that are silent, that were clapping against you, that were clapping when they're talking shit about us, I know right now they're listening and they're like, this guy's the real deal and you should be up there. So I want to ask you, you're the PBA president. What's the first thing you're doing?
Like I said, I want to do a forensic audit. That's one of the things. I want to get a forensic accountant to go in there and crunch the numbers and figure out who's stealing and who's getting carried out in bracelets. That's. I don't feel bad for anybody. If you're stealing, then there's some nice bracelets that are waiting for you. That's definitely one of the first things I'd like to get done. Address the stealing, because I'm sure there has been 24 years, and don't tell me you never put your hand in the cookie jar. These guys are living lavish. They're probably millionaires, some of them. I want to know where the money's been going and why the union why the membership hasn't been represented. Why has CCRB grown in power, right? Is it that these attorneys are on salary and so they don't feel they need to put the work in? Then get rid of them. We could hire young attorneys that are hungry, that want to make a difference, that want to fight. Because these guys, obviously, they lost the fight. They don't have any fight left in them. They just want their money and their cushy positions. And then, so we need to revamp the attorneys, and we need to go after that CCRB, and we need to go after that. We need to change the discipline matrix. And it's just, those are the things right now, because obviously we're within a contract, so we're fine until 2020, after 2025, and then we could talk about contract then. Not then, but I mean closer to that date. Listen, we got something to hold us for a while. Let's focus on the quality of life. Let's focus on the discipline matrix. Let's focus on fighting CCRB and putting up, legal battles and defending our cops. Because look, you got cops are being look at Sal Greco. I don't know if you're familiar. You guys have mentioned it before. Associating with a known or criminal or potential likely to commit a crime. Roger Stone, like, are you kidding me? The guy was found innocent, right? And why is he still? He still got fired. How many how many cops, right, got fired for some petty stuff like that because the PBA didn't want to. It was a black eye or something, or it wasn't going to look good. We got to get away from that. Oh, it doesn't look good. It's not a good look for us. And we got to start fighting for our membership. And if we can't, if we don't have the attorneys, then we need to seek those attorneys. Whether it's finding Jim Rodriguez, who won the vaccine mandate. Maybe that's something to look into. There's other attorneys out here that are willing to put up a fight, and those are the ones we need to hire. And we need to get rid of these attorneys like Dave Nicholson, who testified against cops. We don't need people like that. Just like we don't need to be giving our money to leftist politicians who create diaphragm laws that make our job harder, who refuse to repeal the bail reform that's putting these criminals, So cops are out here risking their pension, risking their freedom, risking their livelihoods, locking people up so that the ADAs could throw them back into the street the next day. You know what I mean? The ink isn't even dry and these guys are walking free. But this, now the cop is getting a hit because he didn't, whether it was an improper nonsense from the discipline matrix, and the cop is getting a bigger hit than the perp that just committed a crime. I mean, it needs to be addressed, and it starts with getting the real attorneys.
I'll tell you what, Franklin, this validates what we suspected all along. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we talked about the first podcast when John actually interviewed myself before we teamed up doing this podcast. I said, I'm pretty confident. I'm sure that all these unions have some dirt on them. And the fact that you want to get a forensic accountant solidifies what I ask myself all the time. I always question how good, how lucrative must it be to be part of this PBA board, to be an executive, an incumbent, to be a trustee, that they would go through such great lengths to create such obstacles, impede potential nominations, not even an actual election process, but to impede the nominations. How good must it be and lucrative that they don't want anyone to penetrate it, that they want to stay in power until they age out, that they stay there forever? It must be phenomenal. I mean, when we think about Team Hendry, I was on the job. I got on January 2004. I never knew who Team who Pat Hendry is. I never saw the guy in my entire career, and all of a sudden, it's like these guys are like sewer rats. They came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they go on roll calls and saying vote for these guys. And what pains me is the cops themselves. Why don't they say, "Who are you? I have never seen you," and now you got a fresh new bottle opener, and you want me to vote for you? But who are you? I think, and I'm going to say it now, John, if you're with me, I say right now the whole election should be boycotted, and the only people that should be nominated is Derek, you, and Julio. Other than that, it should just be empty ballots. How could they go unopposed? This obviously has no one commits a burglary the first time he gets arrested, right? This has been going on since Pat Lynch has been in office. I'm sure of it. We need to, this election, right now I'm telling the cops, you should not be filling this out. You should be filling out for Derek, Julio, and Franklin here. And that's it. Everything else is completely unopposed. And who's telling you to vote for these guys? The union. Who is the union? The one that's running unopposed right now. Ask yourself that.
And I just want to say, if you get a ballot and Hendry and all these guys that are running opposed on it, why would you check the box for them? They're not running against anything. They won. They shouldn't be on the ballot. And if they are, that's further tampering because they're not running on an election. That's just one other piece of tampering. The only people currently that should be on right now, they disqualified Franklin, they disqualified Julio. The only ballot that should come out right now is for the transit financial trustee.
Right, Derek.
And that's it. Guys on it. Derek and who he's running against. And
here's the thing: they didn't even allow him to choose or review the how the ballot's going to look. So he had no input. They left him out of how the ballot's going to look, how his name is going to appear on the ballot, whether he wanted to name and give himself a team name, which it's time to restore the power back to transit. They didn't give him that option. They took that away from him. They denied him a team name because, you're by yourself. You don't have a team.
Further tampering. That's what that is.
They just keep tampering. And until the cops wake up and throw them all out, nothing's going to change.
So I'm saying right now, this whole election needs oversight for all of you bosses that listen, for all the media that listens, for all the politicians that listen. This election needs oversight. Franklin Valdez needs to be put back on that ballot along with Julio. There's a lot of questions that need answered. There's a lot of questions that need answering because I'm telling you right now, I'm furious listening to this because it's absolutely disgusting. Because like you said, we are and have been the premier law enforcement agency in the country for a very long time. And this is a black mark and this is a black eye and this is a stain. And to all the cops that are listening right now, and even the civilians, I want you guys to Google Schoolcraft, police officer Schoolcraft. And I want you to listen to the tapes that came out from him. And then I want you to ask yourself, who was in charge of the PBA at the time? And what did they do for Schoolcraft? Because I'm going to tell you right now, when I heard those tapes, I was actually disgusted about the job that I worked for. I was disgusted about what happened to that kid, and they were nowhere for that kid. They were nowhere. And how a union didn't stand up for him is beyond me. People didn't even know about it until he went to an independent newspaper and released all the tapes and all the things that had happened to him. And again, they were nowhere, and stuff like that cannot and should not happen because all we're doing is we're allowing our own members to be eaten. And you're just sitting back and being silent and not saying anything, hoping that you make it through. That's not the way. We don't do anything wrong. 99.9% of everybody on this job is doing it for the right reasons. We need to stand up for our members.
And it doesn't matter what union you're part of. At the end of the day, they divide us by union, by rank. But at the end of the day, we're all cops. And, that's what we need to remember. We're all on the same side. When that 85, when that 13 comes over, we're all the same. We're all running the same direction.
Absolutely. Franklin, I made that as a point in my career that we're cops first. We're all cops. Even if you're a chief, you should see yourself as a cop. And I used to mimic that idea that I got from the Marine Corps. That's something that I found so fascinating about the Marine Corps was that if you were a private to a general, you know what a general wanted to be called in the Marines? Marine. A general wanted to be called Marine. But in the NYPD, a chief doesn't want to be called a cop. They want to be called chief. Pat Lynch doesn't want to be referred to as just a cop. He wants to be the PBA president. But I like what you said. We're all cops. We should be cops first. And whatever else your bill is, your position, that should be secondary. First, you're a cop. Second, you're a leader. Second, you're a chief. Second, you're PBA president. But that's ultimately the most important thing. I think all the information that you gave here today, you provided, is fantastic. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of information, very valuable information about what's going on in the union. And what John said before, John, that was fantastic what you just said. I agree. It's despicable hearing this, and I say to myself, I got this pit in my stomach. I can't believe that I was on this job. It's embarrassing to hear. But I do hope that there could be a shift and we could bring this back to something that we could be proud of. Something that we could say, you know what? I'm proud to have that patch. You know what? But I tell you what, I never met you personally. We spoke a bit on the phone. I'm proud to know you. And it's nice to see that there's still some guys out there like you. You are a complete outlier. It makes it all worth it that John and I are continue to do this, honestly. Because sometimes we really get some false hope, and there's cops out there that just, no matter what, they're short-minded, they're short-sighted by this money, by the contract, and they really don't know what's going on. They're not reading between the lines and looking below the surface. So, Franklin, you really provided an outstanding interview, and I'm highly impressed with you. And if John agrees, I'd like John to close us out and then give you the last words. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no. So Franklin, if you could just, what's your, what do you want to give to the members? What do you want to tell everybody that's listening, not even just the members? What do you want to tell the world?
Well, I want to tell the cops out there to hold your delegates accountable. Make sure that they're representing you. Make sure that they're voting on your behalf. Any decisions that are being made are being done with your consensus. And keep yourself informed, because the union's making decisions and not only going to affect you, that are going to affect those that come on after you, whether it's your children, whether it's your family members, whether it's your friends, your neighbor, whoever. They're going to be coming on this job, and decisions that are being made by this union are going to affect them, and they're going to affect you as well. They're going to make decisions against your health care that are going to affect you in the future. Just remember, who you leave in office now is going to make those decisions that are going to affect you down the road. So you need to keep that in mind. And it starts even at the delegate level. You have to hold your delegate accountable and make sure that they're doing the job that is in your benefit. And they're not denying you the choice. And as for transit cops, I want all the transit cops, if you agree with me and you agree with John and Eric, and you realize that this election has been tampered with and this is a sham, then boycott the election. And if you're going to vote, I say put your vote behind Derek Andrews. He's the only real candidate. And it takes a lot of courage. He's the last one left. I hate to say it, but he's the only one left now. I hope that me and Julio can come back. It might take some time. It might take a legal battle, but we hope to come back, and we hope to join Eric at the top. I'm sorry, it's Derek. I apologize, Eric.
Hey, outstanding. Outstanding.
Top, and I 100% support Derek, and I wish him the best. And I'm gonna be here with him, and we're not gonna stop campaigning. We're not gonna stop campaigning. We're gonna join him in this campaign, even though we're not candidates, even though we've been disqualified. We're gonna continue to go out there and spread the word, because the members deserve it.
Outstanding, brother. You heard it here. Franklin Valdez, right now, candidate for New York City PBA Transit Trustee, along with Derek Andrews, and of course, Julio running for citywide trustee. John, thank you for taking this journey with me. You heard it here today. New York's finest retired unfiltered podcast. Franklin, thank you for coming on. I think you gave a great interview. And John, you gave some great points on that last one. That was really fantastic. Guys, thank you. Make sure you listen out.
Thank you.
And guys, I just want to say and I want to say to you, Franklin, that it's sometimes I wonder why I even give a shit and why
I've had guys ask
me. But I'm just telling you right now, you reinvigorated me, because it's good to hear, because I honestly believe that people with good hearts and good minds need to come together in the truth, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable. So I feel reinvigorated. I want to thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the great and powerful Franklin Valdez.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.